Good afternoon, everyone. The personnel, start the Personnel Committee meeting. Courtesy of the floor. Seeing none, we have review of the County Executive's appointments. Area Agency on Aging Board. Submitting the following individual for the appointment of the Area Agency on Aging Board. Elaine Arts from Easton. Term to begin September 20th and then June 30th. There is some information attached to this request. Motion to bring to full. Any comments or questions? Any comments or questions on the appointment? And motion to move to full council.
So moved.
Thank you. Next, we have appointment to the Area Agency on Aging Board. Robert Pritapava from Bethlehem. Term to begin September 20th, 2019 and end June 30th, 2021. There's some information attached. Any questions or comments on this appointment? Motion to move to full council.
So moved.
Thank you. Next, we have interim appointment to the Housing Authority Board. Leona Demko from Bath. Ms. Demko is a resident of the Howard Jones Manor and will fill the resident's position previously held by Trula Davis. Ms. Davis resigned her position in December 2018. Ms. Demko's term will begin September 20th, 2019 and will expire February 9th, 2020. Questions or comments? If not, motion to move.
So moved.
Okay. Next, appointments for the Personnel Commission. Marvin Boyer. Mr. Boyer is being considered for a 2-year term to begin September 20th, 2019 and then December 31st, 2021. And there is a recommendation for a Personnel Commission member attached. And a brief bio. Questions or comments?
Just a quick comment. He appears to be well qualified, so I think that's a really good resume. Thank you to him for applying.
Absolutely. All right. Okay. Wow. Yeah, that's fantastic. Motion
so
to move.
Moved.
Thank you. Okay, that gets us through the appointments. Next, we have review of an application to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Career Service Civil Service. In front of you, it's a packet. It's about this thick. And please accept this memorandum as a joint request of the Department of Human Resources and the Department of Human Services for your recommendation to County Council to approve the enclosed application to the Pennsylvania Commonwealth to use a local merit personnel system in lieu of contracting with the State Civil Service Commission for the use of their merit personnel system. Please note also that because most council members have ready access to the Home Rule Charter, Administrative Code, and Career Service regulations and county policy manuals have not included all of the exhibits with the enclosed application to safe paper. Signed, County Executive. Questions or comments or anything from the administration? I know we've discussed this at the last personnel meeting. We had some folks on the phone to talk about it. We had someone come in.
Yeah, I guess I have one question to start. So it says to terminate the civil service agreements with Departments of Human Services, Drug and Alcohol, and Aging. Do those two entities need to be separated out, or is it all inclusive of all the other departments, or?
Hi, I'm Liz Kelly, Director of Human Resources. As far as I am aware, we are applying to end the contract with the state civil service for all of those agencies, and we've stated that clearly in our cover letter to them. There's a sample of that. In fact, I watermarked it, sample diagonally, that would be signed by the county executive after we obtain your approval. That's why I put sample, because I felt a little leery about putting something on the county executive's letterhead just out there. So what we're applying for is for all of the agencies to use our local merit selection personnel system, career service, instead of the state civil service commission's merit personnel system. We're lucky here. Unlike some of the counties and other municipalities that have applied to the state to get out from under civil service and had to create a whole new merit personnel system that they never had before. We've been using a merit personnel system for, well, in my research I found out since 1978, so about 40 years, 41 years. I'm hoping that our experience is a big plus factor in our application. Yes,
Thank you.
Cusick.
This is the first step of a long journey. Could you maybe take us through what this does and ultimately where this is going and the timetable?
Well, as much as I know of it, Mr. Cusick, and the reason I say that is because what I know and what Ms. Wondolowski knows is that we file, after we get your approval and the county, the county executive's recommendation, we file our application. And we file it with approval. We then wait. I'm told it can take 6 months. I mean, my experience with state agencies is that they tend to be overworked.
I was just going to say, 6 months for a state agency, you're being awfully optimistic.
Yeah, and I don't know what other kind of a workload these reviewers would have. But I think we're prepared that it might take longer just for them to review our application, because there's a lot to read. We have all of these things, prepared and ready. I'm going to send the Home Rule Charter, I'm going to send the Administrative Code, and I'm going to send our small yellow booklet of career service regulations, and also a stack of our policies that pertain to all those things too. Even though I feel that we've outlined it well, and we show them where in each of these legal documents they can find each component of a merit selection system that we're supposed to have, it will take time to read through, and I truly don't know the size of the team reviewing it. So it's hard for me to really predict, but my suspicion is we'll submit our application, and then we may be, when they get to a point where they've reviewed it, we may be asked to either produce more details or give more explanation, or if they feel that we're lacking in something, and I don't know what that could be, because I don't think we are, they will tell us, I'm sure, and tell us to produce it, and we will produce it. At some point, we'll be told we're approved. So I'm going to say, optimistically, perhaps within 6 to 12 months.
Good.
Are you finished?
Yeah, thank you.
Just a comment. I've paid attention to council before I got voted in, and been at every council meeting almost since then. And I've heard so many discussions about civil service and the problems and the just can't get it done. We can't get these people hired. We can't. I just think it's a proactive move that, I think that, you could just sit back and do nothing, or we could do this. And I think that's important, and it shows the government that's, the good government that's in place.
Thank you, Mr. McGee. I can't take credit for that. That would be Ms. Wondolowski.
So, yeah, I think it's great that we're moving forward to try to fix this problem.
Oh, and the county executive, of course.
Yes.
And that's not just an afterthought. He really did say, we're doing this, Liz.
Nice. I know we answered a lot of questions at the last Personnel Committee meeting based on some of the output of this. So I know Mr. Heckman's not here tonight. You know, I'm sure he would have some things to say. But anyway. So.
Well,
Mr. Lott?
Yes, I know I'm not on the committee, but I was just wondering, are we looking at creating a position to do this, or are we going to be able to do this with our existing staff, or haven't we gotten that far down the road?
well, we have thought about it. And I think we've decided that it would require more staff than we have now. Our opinions vary. Maybe it would either be one or two more people. Right now we have one HR analyst who is the person who really prepares all of the eligibility lists. That's the person that screens through all of the applications, makes sure that they qualified depending on what the job description says and any other requirements that might be posted for the job. But most of them are in the job description. And, you know, and if anybody has more than just the minimum qualifications, they'll get a higher rank. They get more points for that. If they're a veteran, they get more points for that. One person is doing that for the whole county. I have just hired one for Gracedale, and we would need at least one for DHS. And my person for the county has an assistant. I think we would need an assistant too.
Percentage of employees now that would now be covered under this? I mean, what is now covered under it, and what are we adding to it? Roughly.
I would say that, well, true career service employees probably are 10 to 15% of our employee population, but that's because so many of the jobs, I mean, under the Home Rule Charter, every job that is not an appointed position, that's not exempt under Section 802 of the Home Rule Charter, is a career service position. That just means without collective bargaining or anything, it's not a position that can be appointed, it's not exempt. If it's to be filled, it must be filled using the merit selection system, where we have to post the job, we have to advertise the job, we have to allow open competition on the basis of skills and qualifications for the job. We have to develop an eligibility list based on the applicant's skills and how well they meet the requirements of the position. From that eligibility list, we further winnow down to the top 3 candidates, a certified list of eligibles. Those 3 must be interviewed first, you know, for any open position. Now, some of our collective bargaining agreements say otherwise, and they're allowed to. Under the Home Rule Charter, if someone's under a collective bargaining agreement, there are remedies, and most of the rights are going to come from that collective bargaining agreement. So the union may require that we post it and we give everyone in the bargaining unit like a first right to bid on the job. Sometimes we can fill them from within the same bargaining unit, sometimes we can't. So we follow career service for all non-bargaining unit jobs in the county. That's not really the majority of jobs in the county. But it is jobs at Gracedale, it is jobs here in the Government Center, and it is jobs over at Department of Human Services. It could be a lot more, because I think your agency employs about 700 to 800, Susan? Am I right about that?
DHS is about 300 people.
I'm sorry, 300.
Both of those are civil service jobs.
All right, I'm thinking of Gracedale, sorry. So another 300 employees, which is about 15% more of our total complement.
So would it be fair to say we start right now? We're using this for about 15% of our employees, and you're thinking we're going to double that amount?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the administration? Any other comments or questions on this issue? I know we talked about it at the last few meetings. Motion to move. Full council.
So moved.
Okay, next we have Mental Health Early Intervention and Development Programs Advisory Board met and approved amendments in its bylaws. The board is seeking approval of the changes from the county council by way of resolution pursuant to the home charter rule. The changes are highlighted on the attached bylaws. Also attached section 302 and 303 of the Mental Illness and Mental Retardation Act of 1966, which describes rules and duties of the County Mental Health and Mental Retardation Board. With your approval, please forward the attached information to County Council for review at the next council meeting. Okay, we have the bylaws in front of us. Changes. The changes are underlined. And there's some strikeouts. Did anyone from the administration want to go over this with us, or and just point out some of the significant changes to the bylaws?
I'm on the committee, and I think
Okay.
it's just a matter of updating and refining, because I know,
To get it in current with the law, the current law, and
make sure that the
Rules.
practice follows the bylaws and that the bylaws follow the like the memberships are, the members are serving their appointed terms, and that everything's being held the way it's supposed to be. So I think we just reviewed it and tried to update and make it germane to the actual
is this
practice.
this isn't an annual thing. This is
No.
something that has been coming.
Yeah, I think it's been delayed, actually, correct?
So
Pardon?
Procedural issues.
due diligence.
I guess.
With no other comments, questions, move to adopt at the next council meeting. Move to the next council meeting.
I'm a member, so maybe if
So
I can
moved.
second.
Thank you. Mr. Werner. And with that, does anybody have anything else for the Personnel Committee? I can report that we did receive a large amount of applications for the deputy clerk position. I was taken back by the amount of them. So I guess it's good that we have interest. Whether they're all interested in during the interview time, we'll see. But Ron is out of town this week, so we'll be looking at scheduling something next week and taking a look at reviewing some of them and maybe set some interviews up in the near future. With no other questions or comments, move to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is
Bless you.
beginning to, bless you. Let's
Bless
keep
you.
it over there too. Okay. First of all, courtesy of the floor, is there anyone here to speak? Mr. Executive?
Mr. Chairman? So we have two items on your committee agenda that I'd like to just briefly address. The first is the discussion regarding taxable bonds. One of the things that I like about running a government is that we, generally speaking, don't have to pay any taxes. Occasionally there'll be events where we have to fill out some returns and submit those, but we don't pay taxes. We're exempt from that. So when this idea was first brought to me, I greeted it with skepticism, and then I saw the numbers. We're doing so well financially in the county. Specifically, because of the flexibility you gave us, you just saved us $400,000 in a refinancing we did, and you're going to hear a presentation today from PFM that I think will cause us to be able to save even more money on another refund on a different issue. But it's important that you ask the question about taxable versus not taxable. We really need to do this together if we're going to go forward. I'd definitely like a resolution from council in advance of making any moves on this issue, because there is a bird in the hand versus two in the bush situation here. So there is a rather large chunk of money in the short term that the refinancing can generate for the county. But if we wait until the bonds are fully callable, there could be even more depending on what the interest rate environment is then. So again, a bird in the hand, is it worth two in the bush or not? That's a question you need to ask the folks who actually know what they're talking about. So thank you very much for entertaining this very important issue, and at the end of the day, hopefully we'll come to a place where I can recommend it to you, and then you'll ultimately decide on whether you're going to authorize us to go forward with a resolution. The review of the Gracedale employee referral incentive payments request. We think this is very important. I think it's as important substantively as it is for a matter of perception. I mean, we have, as you get at your human services meetings, committee meetings, reports on how mightily we are working to staff Gracedale. I mean, we're standing on our heads. The Gracedale administration is going to come to you with even more ideas in the future about how we can again fill open positions there. But I think this is very important to let the public and more importantly our own folks who work there know that we will put our money where our mouths are. And Brian is here to review that with you, and hopefully you'll find that to be an interesting program. Thank you very much.
Excuse me, Mr.
Sure.
Executive, do you need the resolution set up today so we can have it for tomorrow night?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't know. We will ask them that, how quickly we would
Because I
need
know
to-
how the bond
need to be ready
markets
to-
sometimes are based on time, so.
Well, we'll see. Ask them that and see what they think.
May I follow up to that?
Sure.
Bond counsel will council have to vote on one, or will we be
I don't
using
know.
a pre?
I don't know the
okay.
answer to that. Let me figure that out. Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, Council. Afternoon, Council. PFM is going to do a presentation for you. They had brought to my attention, especially with the Feds just about an hour ago, lowering the interest rates another 0.25%, had brought the idea of taxable bonds to us. You might have heard about that at CCAP. It's been discussed quite a bit based on the unique economic environment we have and the county's excellent credit rating, which PFM is going to talk to you about. The options they're going to present to you today are sort of, for you to ponder and consider whether or not you want to maybe act now because there is substantial savings, or wait until the bonds that we have out there are callable. Any action we take, any action council or the executive decides to take, like you asked about bond counsel, obviously we'd follow the same procedure. We'd bid all that stuff out. We wouldn't necessarily be using Janney Montgomery Scott. They were the best deal the last time. But again, this is about making sure we get the best deal for the taxpayers and doing what is absolutely correct, dotting all our I's and crossing all our T's, so we would go through the full process again. But without any further ado, I have Garrett Moore and Scott Shearer from PFM. They have a handout for you, and they're going to talk you through the particulars of this with regard to the county's new lending and then where we stand today and how this would fit in.
You.
How you doing? Good, good. All right, well, good afternoon. Again, Scott Shear with PFM. Appreciate your time this afternoon. Good to be back. I think it was well summarized already from what we already heard, but why don't we just turn to this handout, and kind of the main reason why we're here, I think, is sort of illustrated on pages 1 and pages 2 with various interest rate charts. So we have all different charts that we can look at, but why don't we go to the bottom of page 1. So we've seen a steady decline in the long-term interest rates, basically, as I talked about back a few months ago, sort of since the holidays, and they've continued to go that way until just about a week ago, and then we started to see the long-term rates actually trend a different direction. Where they go from here, No one knows. Crystal ball's been broke for a long time, so I never even try to forecast where rates are going to be anymore because I'm going to lose every single time. But I think the bottom chart, again, is pretty compelling. This just looks back to January of 2018. So we're, almost a 2-year look back. And you can kind of see in the middle of that chart at the bottom where, the blue line was kind of at the top point. That was right around the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas time frame. And really since then, it's just kind of dropped. So when we were able to effectuate the refunding that we were authorized to do, that worked out great. We hit the market at a very, very good time. Since then, the market did even get a little bit better. But again, we captured great savings, much more than expected on that transaction. But then you see on the far right-hand side of that bottom chart, like I said, we have started to see an increase in the in the long-term rates. However, today with the Fed funds dropping, the overnight borrowing rate, how that impacts the long-term rates, which is really what we care about for this transaction, we saw long-term rates today drop by about 5 basis points or so, give or take, depending on where exactly in the yield curve you're talking about. So, basically the synopsis of all this is there's volatility in the market. It's really all over the place. Just like the stock market is very volatile, the bond market is as well. But in the big scheme of things, we are very much close to historically low averages. No matter how far back in time you go, we are at very low levels. The other chart, and so the chart that we just looked at on page 1, all 3 of those are municipal indices, i.e. the tax-exempt indices. If you go to page 2, this is another chart. If you've seen the blue banner up top, this is now comparing the 10-year Treasury, which is a taxable security or taxable index, versus the 10-year MFD or the 10-year municipal index, which I believe we talked about that for the prior refinancing. So here we go back to early 2016. The blue line is the 10-year municipal index, the tax-exempt index, and the other line is the 10-year Treasury. And again, you see they correlate pretty well with each other. There's a little bit of space in between those, but for the most part, they follow the same trajectory. The blue box, which correlates with the blue line, again shows where we are right now. The current rate is a 154. The minimum was a 129, so we're about 35 basis points off the all-time low that we saw back in June of 16. And in the I guess opaque color or so, that's the 10-year Treasury, and currently it's a 2.08, and the minimum was a 1.35. So again, about 75 basis point increase or off the all-time lows in the market. Again, all total, whether you're looking back to 2016 or further back, rates historically low. So with that, that's where we contacted the administration a little bit ago and said, hey, we watch all of your outstanding debt, and if there's an opportunity to refinance it, save some money, not looking at restructuring the debt, so not looking at extending the maturity or not looking at shortening the maturity, basically just going from a higher rate to a lower rate. We just want to make you aware of the opportunity. And so on the next page, kind of get into a little bit more about why we're talking about taxable debt in this particular case. So points number 1 and 2 on page 3 we already kind of talked about as far as the market in general and historically low rates. Point number 3. So at the end of 2017, there was tax law change that occurred that now eliminated the ability for governments to advance refund debt. And when we talk about advance refund, you either advance refund debt or you currently refund debt. When you currently refund debt, that's when you're basically within 90 days of its call date or its prepayment date. When you advance refund debt, you're more than 90 days prior to the call date. And so we'll get to the 2012 B bonds, what we're targeting, but right now we're a few years before the call date of the bonds that we're targeting. So the tax law change basically said you cannot advance refund debt anymore with tax-exempt new bonds. However, you can still advance refund debt with taxable bonds. So because of basically how low rates have gone, we're seeing it's not only across Pennsylvania but across the nation that a lot of issuers, similar to the county, are saying, hey, well, traditionally we only issue tax-exempt debt, but rates are so low right now, and it is producing pretty significant savings, albeit it's changing around on a daily basis. Let's consider that. And so, again, we are seeing quite a few of these around the state and outside the state. So that's sort of the reason behind it's kind of all has been spurred from the tax law change that occurred at the end of 2017. So in point number 5, Again, the bonds that we're targeting are the Series B of 2012. And little a there's about $60.7 million of principal outstanding. The call date is October 1 of 2022, so we're a few years away from that. The average rate on those existing bonds is a 4.81%. So again, the whole goal would be to go from a 4.81 to say something, probably below 3% to achieve those economic savings. So then on point number 6, there's basically two options that you already heard summarized very well. In scenario 1 that we have in 6A, that's where you could authorize the team to proceed with doing a taxable refunding of those 2012B bonds. Right now, estimated debt service savings are about $3.1 million, or about 5.23%. We ran out a week ago. It was more savings. Even if we run it today now with the change in the market, because this is a very large transaction, it's pretty rate sensitive. So even with the changes that occurred today, we could probably increase savings by, I wouldn't be surprised if it's about $250,000. So it fluctuates quite a bit, just like our own retirement portfolios do as well. But from an efficiency standpoint, anything, I know we talked about it in the last transaction. Some of our governmental clients set 2% as the savings target. Some set 3% as a savings target. And we're talking about that percent. That's basically when you take the total amount of net savings after the issuance costs are paid out, so the true net savings, and you basically divide that by the amount of bonds that you're refunding. That's sort of the bogey that a lot of governmental entities look at, is as long as the savings exceed 2% or savings exceed 3%, that's the kind of the trigger to move forward. So that's scenario 1, where we like where the market is right now. We know, we more or less know where it is. If we can do a taxable refunding and we achieve above X savings, and that's something that we'd all have to discuss, is what is everyone comfortable with proceeding? Is it 5% savings? Is it 4%? We can have that discussion then. So that's option 1. Scenario 2, right below there, is we just wait. We wait until the call date, and we take that market risk. And market risk could be good or bad. Could mean rates are higher when we get to that point, therefore then the savings would be lower, or it could mean rates are lower at that point in time. Again, we have no idea sitting here today where rates are going to be in 2022. But the point under 6B little I is, if today's rates exist in 2022, when this would become a current refunding, then net savings would be about a little over $5 million. So as you get closer to the call date, the savings will get better if the market conditions stay exactly as they are today. Well, we know that's not going to be the case. They're either probably going to be higher or lower. It's just a matter of to what degree they're going to be. And we have another summary page that explains that a little bit more. So those are really the two options before you. It's either go forward today with a taxable refunding, again, as long as a certain threshold of net savings is met, or let's just wait, see what happens with the market. We could always entertain a taxable refunding next year as well. We'll still be a few years before the call date. We just don't know where the rates are going to be. Or you could just say, thanks for the information, but we just want to do it on a sort of traditional basis and wait to the call date until we can do a tax exempt like all of our other debt has been done as well. So to put this in perspective a little bit more with your overall debt portfolio, if you turn to page 4. So page 4 is a high-level summary of the outstanding debt of the county. And in column 4, with the red dotted box shaded in yellow, that's the series of bonds that we're targeting. So again, it's the Series B of 2012. And you see the annual, that's the annual principal and interest that's due on that particular bond issue. So it's, in 2020, it's about $4.7 million, and it goes up to about $7.6 million and stays steady thereafter. And then you can see your other debt issuances as well. We have included in there, this in column 6 and 7, the two different transactions we did this year for the new money earlier in the year, and then the refunding that we were able to do a few months back as well. And then we have some other lease payments in there. But what we're targeting, again, is column 4. And it's important to note, I'll mention again, that we are not changing the amortization. We're not stretching it out or shortening the debt. So as far as then looking a little bit more into the numbers, and I already did highlight them on page 2, but I think page 5 gives us a little bit more color with the different options. So in the blue, on the left-hand side, we're up top under column 1 where it says Act Now. That's what we call Scenario 1, and that's the taxable advance refunding. And so we're assuming about $66 million or so being issued. Rate assumption is with the current taxable markets. These particular illustrations, we're assuming level savings, so you actually realize the savings over the life of the issue. You don't have to do it that way. You can say, I want to realize the savings up front in the first year or two. We can do that. There's no right or wrong answer. It's just whatever your preference is. And again, this is showing about $3.2 million of net savings and a savings percent of about 5.23%. So then we go over to the right in columns 2, 3, and 4 in the red, green, and purple, where we have different assumptions. So in the red, it's if we wait till the call date in 2022 and rates are 100 basis points or 1 full percent lower than where they are today. That's probably not likely based on all the historical indices and everything. But again, who knows? I mean, you never know. Overseas, they have negative interest rates. So we have room to go down, but whether or not will they, that's to be determined. So I'm not so sure the red is too feasible, but in today's world, we never say never. So we're not going to promise that they're not going to be. So if we wait until 2022 and long-term rates would be 100 basis points or 1% lower than they are today, your net savings would be about $7.7 million in this particular case. If we could jump over to the green and we get to 2022 and we do the transaction with tax-exempt debt and they're basically where they are today, the rates are, that's that $5.2 million number that I had mentioned before, or about 9.71%. But if rates are in the purple, if they're 100 basis points or 1% higher than they are today, then the savings are about $2.7 million. Again, every time I'm talking about savings, that's net of the issuance cost. That would be the true savings that the county would realize. And you see down below then in, say, column 7 and 9 and 11 and 13 in all the respective colors, that's the annual savings that we're showing from this issue. Now, again, we're showing annual savings over the life of this deal. It does not have to be that way. We can take them more up front as well. There's some flexibility with that. So we thought it'd be, we obviously have to show you the different options. We don't know. No one in this room knows where rates are going to be later tomorrow, let alone, in 2022. But we felt it was just fair to show you that here's the taxable opportunity today, and then here's a couple different scenarios of what, depending on where rates go in 2022, if they're higher, if they're the same, if they're lower, what the potential savings could be for the county if we wait at that point. So we just felt it was important to bring the concept to you, to have the discussion, and happy to answer any questions you may have at this point.
Thank you, Scott. Questions? John?
Thank you. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Couple things. For those newer members of council, issuing taxable bonds is nothing new. It's something we've done here before to pay off the swaption. So, yeah, I said it. So it is something that we have done here before. So it's not unprecedented that a government body issue taxable bonds. But I guess my question is, you brought up the 2017 tax law, and one of the things that tax law did is it got rid of the SALT deductions, state and local income tax, and mortgage interest. More people are just claiming the standard deduction. So what that has done is that has made tax-exempt municipal bonds all that more desirable for investors. So that's what has changed since the last time we issued the taxable bonds. So my question is, how much, and the other predicate is this, because of the irresponsible spending of the Trump administration, the market is flooded with treasuries, okay? So my question is, how desirable will taxable bonds from a local government entity be on the market?
There's a lot of demand for them. We sell taxable bonds for our clients. Sometimes it's pension related. If you have to fund your pension plan, you have to issue bonds on a taxable basis. Sometimes if you restructure debt, you got to do it on a taxable basis. Swap, terminations, things like that, taxable basis. So of the ones, and what's also very desirable, I would say, is twofold. Number one, the credit rating of the county is excellent. So investors love that. and the structure of this transaction being large but fairly short, right? It's kind of in the sweet spot of where investors look. Sometimes taking that risk out 20, 30 years, buying bonds, given all the volatility in the market, some investors aren't a big fan of that. But given that it's about a 10-year transaction, that's going to be more desirable. So I would say it's going to be pretty sought after. But to test that, we would do what we did last time is, if everyone wanted, would send out an RFP again to various underwriters to add some competitiveness to that to see where the underwriters actually think. But I don't see much of a lessened demand in this market. Investors right at the moment, they're actually just looking for paper. They're looking for investments, both tax exempt and taxable. Now, it is a different group of buyers between the taxable and tax exempt. There is some overlap, but I would say there's still very strong demand on the taxable side.
But wouldn't there be much more of a market or a interest in tax-free given the changes in the tax law? I think that's why I'm kind of concerned. Things have changed since we did this the last time. I'm not opposed to doing it, but the change in the law has made tax-free municipal bonds much more desirable from an investment standpoint. I don't think you can deny that.
Can't deny that, and there's other factors that are involved in that as well. Sometimes the market, like right now, the market is starting to get very flooded. Because of how low rates have gone, the market is actually getting very flooded with tax-exempt municipal debt, because there's a lot of cities and counties and townships and boroughs across the state, across the country, trying to take advantage of this as well. Maybe they have a current refunding to do, or maybe they have new money projects that they were sort of stalling on, not sure if we want to do this or not. Well, now let's do it because we know we can lock in rates. So there is a lot of debt issuance going on, and that will actually, the whole supply and demand impact could increase the rates a little bit, but that's always temporary, right? It just, the market gets flooded, and then it works its way out, gets kind of all that supply out, and then things get back to normal. So it's really, it really does vary. But I think your logic is all right. It's just, where do we think, we kind of know where things are today, even though things change by the hour. It's just where is the appetite going to be, or where is the market going to be in 2022? I wish I could tell you.
If I knew that, I wouldn't be sitting up here right now.
We'd have our own island somewhere far away, enjoying the sun and everything else. But no, all your points are well taken and spot on.
Thank you.
Other questions? Mr. McGee, you have a question?
I do. Can you break down on the 5th page, can you just break that down in layman's terms for me here? So the principal, 66,960,000, right?
Yep.
In the blue block. Okay. The amount refunded, can you explain that to me a little bit in layman's terms?
The amount refunded, that's basically the par amount. That's the amount of the bonds that are outstanding right now.
Right now?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
And so they pay down every year. So every year, your finance office will make a payment. That's why when you look at between, say, the blue and the red, the amount refunded is less for all the ones if we wait till the current refunding, because between now and 2022, the county's going to pay off about $6 million of principal between now and then. So that's the reason for the difference. Yep.
And then the projections, the savings, is that over a 10-year period?
Yes, that's
Okay.
per year. So if
All
you look,
of them are?
yeah, they're all the
Based
same.
on the 10-year period?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yep. So if you look down below, in kind of the bottom half, let's just look at column 7, for example. So the way the 3.1 million is calculated, or 3.2 million is calculated, is about 290,000 per year there in column 7, and that totals to basically the $3.2 million number.
Okay, that's like the amortization.
That's the way the savings are being realized. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Now again, you could say, well, because we're showing this all that way for an apples-to-apples comparison between all the different options. You could say, okay, well, that's great, but we'd rather have that benefit up front than, say, the first 2 years or first 3 years or something. We got to make sure we're complying with Pennsylvania state law when we structure it.
This also locks it in, though, and keeps it at a reasonable low rate for 10 years.
For the life of the transaction.
Right.
That's
So
right.
let's go to number 2 then, if I may. The second scenario is less 1%, right? 100 basis
If rates are
points.
1% lower than they are today.
And that's not the short-term rate, that's the long-term
That's right.
10-year rate.
That's right.
Now, if the short-term rate goes down, that might spur the long-term rate to go up, right? Because the cost, it spurs economic development and it pops it up.
It may, yeah. Sometimes they don't always work in lockstep, right?
Like they're not doing right now.
Right. Sometimes the short-term rates go up, long-term rates go up. Sometimes short-term rates go up, long-term rates don't move. That's the flat yield curve. Sometimes short-term rates go up, long-term rates go down. That's the inverted yield curve. You never really know those possibilities happen. We have
So
seen
two's a little highly unlikely, I think.
I personally think, but I'm never going to say never, but I think it's more unlikely.
Number 3, can you just describe that? That's going,
That's assuming long-term rates, say the 10-year
Stay the
rate,
same.
Stay the same.
stay the same, like today? and
3
then
years,
3 years from now, it's the same.
I'm here and I'm showing you these same kind of charts that were near historic lows at, these rates, yeah.
Okay, and then last one is it goes up
It goes up
1%.
1%. That's right. Yep.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
It did, thank you. I appreciate you
Sure.
running through
You
that
bet.
with me.
Any else? I have a really, I'm very conservative when it comes to moving money after going through that S word we did a few years back.
Yep, I remember.
And,
I was going to say what you said earlier, John, but
yeah,
I'm not
we
even
don't
going to
want to
mention
talk
that
that.
word now.
The savings is approximately $5 million if we act on this correct right now.
No,
If we put the resolution together. for-
Right now, it's about
It's 3.
3.2 million.
So the closer we get to the call date,
The closer we get to the call date and rates stay the same,
Yes.
the savings will get a little bit better, yes.
All right.
Or it's not a little bit, they will get better.
a lot better.
Yeah, none of those scenarios actually guarantee that those rates are gonna be that rate. We only know what the rate's gonna be today.
That's right.
Yeah,
So
we're-
if you act on any information, it's what you have in front of you, right?
Well, that's why I'm saying right now, we know where we're at. Not to say that it's a volatile market, but it is. We don't know what's going to happen in the next year, 2, 3, and I'm scared about that. So I think, just my opinion, I believe this council should act on this as soon as we can to take advantage of the money. That's just me speaking, okay?
I'm not on the committee, but I also think that might be an act of assurance
Yeah.
for the county and the taxpayers, because we're only, this last chart, number 4, it only figures it going up 1%,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, and,
Yeah,
right, and,
it could go up higher. I mean,
and if I'm not going to say the R word, but a recession would happen, what happens to the interest rate when you have a recession?
that's the unknown. So typically, if we hit a recession,
So
we're going to see the short-term-
2001, 2008, what happened?
we're going to see the short-term rates go down, right? So the Fed's going to drop the short-term rates down substantially back to probably close to zero again, like it was before. But what had happened when we hit the last recession, long-term rates, it took a while for them to go down. I mean, we were actually in 2009 and 2010, we were still issuing debt for a lot of our municipal clients with 5% type interest rates, high 4s, some were even 6. So again, it's back 20, 30 years ago, I could probably answer your question a little bit better. As far as it was a little bit more programmed as far as if short-term rates go down, what long-term rates do. Today, I honestly don't know. As much as we have all the market gurus and everything else and all the different forecasting models, I think it's unknown. I think we do know if we hit a recession, the short-term rates are going to go down. The Fed's going to do that to help spur the economy. As far as which way the long-term rates go, I don't honestly know. I just don't want to mislead you. I mean, they could go up, they could stay about the same, or they could go down. It's just every situation is a little bit different. Because so much now, if we have a recession here, that's obviously a big impact. That's why the Fed's going to drop rates. But then there's so much other stuff going on internationally that we have no control of, the Fed has no control of, that can really shake the rates, the long-term rates around as well. That's what throws in these extra dynamics these days, where I don't know if we really had that same kind of dynamic 20, 30 years ago as far as the whole international impact on things.
And if I can add, we're not supposed to gamble with the money of the public here. We're supposed to do the right things and
Right.
see when we can get the gains out of
Sure.
it. We did that a few years back, and I don't think we should do it again. Just my thoughts, okay? Yeah, Tara.
So what are the consequences of not moving forward with this? Like, what are the drawbacks of not moving forward with this? And are there any drawbacks of moving forward with this? Like, what are the negatives?
The potential negative is if you move forward today, and we went and did the transaction, and you saved $3.2 million or whatever it is, and then 3 years from now, I'm here for some other meeting, and we look at where rates are, and you say, rates have actually gone down from when you were here in 2019. Why did we do that transaction, right? So that's
Oh, so that's the biggest negative,
That's
right?
really the biggest negative, is that the rates could go, they could go down this 100 basis points, although probably not likely. They could go down, and we'd all kind of be kicking ourselves at that
But this
point.
is a pretty good rate right now.
These are very good
Yeah.
rates.
And the tax.
I'm sorry?
And the bonds would be taxable versus tax-free if we were to issue them.
Right.
It's more from the investor standpoint. So the investors, it has really no implications from the county's perspective. The tax implications are the investors that buy these now have to pay.
They're taxed.
It's their tax on it, yes.
Is that, so that's a disadvantage for them. Is that also a deterrent for somebody to want to invest in these kind of bonds if they're going to be taxed for them?
No, it's built into the rate. So that's why the taxable rate is typically a little bit higher than the tax exempt rate to account for that. Yep, exactly. Yep.
So this is a good.
Yeah, as far as any of the negatives here, I don't know if you have anything to add, but I would tell you, both of them, both of the transactions, whether it's taxable or tax exempt, are going to have a 10-year call feature on it. That's not really going to give you a lot of refunding ability in the future, but they're both going to be about equal as far as the prepayment features, whether you do a taxable deal or you wait to do a tax exempt deal.
So what happens in 10 years?
In 10 years, the county, in 10 years, the actual deal itself matures in 2030, but in 10 years, the county would have an option to refinance those if you wanted to. But the rate stays the same. Like, the rate doesn't change. The only way the rate would change is if you took action and refunded it. Now,
And we could refund it, we could refinance it within those 10 years as well.
you could with taxable debt again.
So
That's right.
so it gives us a lot of different options.
You do have flexibility.
So we're stable for 10 years at this rate.
Well, the rate's stable through maturity.
Oh.
Through the end date, the rate is not going to change. You're going to lock in fixed rate bond issue. Instead of being tax exempt, it's going to be taxable, but it's still going to be fixed rate for the life. If in a couple of years, somehow we do see rates drop substantially, we could be back having this discussion and say, hey, remember that transaction we did in 2019, saved you $3.2 million? Well, now rates are even a lot lower, and we can do another taxable refunding on that as well. So there is that opportunity. Whether or not rates drop that low to actually refinance these, because these are going to be at such a low rate, that's to be determined. But again, I never say never anymore, just given what's going on in the market anymore. So, those are really the only negatives, if you will, that
But
I
they're
see.
not really downsides.
They're not really downside. It's just there's risk, right? It's just risk that rates go down even more. But you do have the ability that if rates do go down more, you can do another taxable advance refunding on the debt.
And on the flip side, they could go up, so risk.
So, right,
if risk
yeah, the
on
risk,
up, if
the
they
risk
go
always
down, you don't
exists.
know.
That's right.
Right, when
Yeah,
you're
risk can
dealing
go
with
either
rates,
way,
yeah.
up or down.
Excuse me. Ms. Fargo Hefner has a question.
So if we were to advance this today, what would the timeline be in terms of RFPs and when we'd actually, because obviously the rates are moving every day, so.
Yeah, so does anyone have offhand when your next couple meeting dates are?
So they'd be, yeah,
Third
Every
October
other
3rd?
week?
every,
week of, yeah.
I mean, I guess, in my question of timeline is how soon do we have to move, but also,
So we would have to first start drafting the preliminary official statement. Now, the good news, and that's the offering document that we had to put together for last bond issue that has all the information of the county that investors look at. The good news is, we just did it a couple months ago, so there's not going to be a lot of updating to do, so we can move pretty quickly on that component. As far as selection of underwriter and bond counsel, that can be a pretty
Yeah,
quick
but
process.
we do have new debt services involved in those, so they have to be updated.
Yeah, we do have to update the document, but it's not going to be too labor intensive. I think we can do that pretty quick. Absolutely, there's still going to be different things we need to do with that. I would think we could be back. So you would need to do 2 readings, right? So I think we could be back on October 3rd with the first reading, and then do your final reading on October 17th. During that time, we'd be updating the documents, starting the process with the credit rating agency. working on underwriter and bond counsel, that issue, and be able to discuss that on October 3rd and October 17th. And, you know, what I would recommend is for the actual borrowing ordinance that ultimately would be approved under this timeline on 17th, to have a savings floor in there. That we could not proceed with. We could get everything to the finish line, and then the market goes away from us. And let's just say I come to that meeting on 17th, and the net savings are 3%. And you might say, well, no, we don't want to do it 3%. We want to do it only if it's above 4%, or whatever that number is that we pick. I would recommend that be in the ordinance.
Didn't we do this last time?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. So, but that would safeguard us if, for some reason, the rate, like, skyrocketed for no apparent reason.
That's right.
Great.
Okay, Bill?
And if that happened, I mean, it's a good point.
Yeah, we
So
wouldn't have to proceed then.
you wouldn't have to proceed,
Yeah.
and even all the work that we put in, we would not bill for that, right? We only bill if a transaction gets completed. So we may work until, you know, the bottom of the ninth, and right when we're ready to price the bonds, the market goes away from us, we just put it on the shelf, and we'll just keep you posted. You know, maybe the market come back a month later, maybe it takes 6 months, maybe it never does. You know, it's hard to say what's going to happen, but yeah, we don't charge unless the transaction gets completed. And that's the way bond counsel is as well. Underwriter, the only cost that the county would incur would be the cost of the advertisement that would go in the paper before the meeting on the 17th. That might be $1,000, you know, somewhere around there. And then depending on where we are in the credit rating process, if we pull the plug before we start the serious discussion with the credit rating agencies, there's no charge that the credit rating agency would implement. But if we pull the plug after the credit rating agency already gives the fee, or I'm sorry, gives the rating, then there'll be some kind of fee that they assess. And it won't be their full amount, but it'll be some, I think they charge like 60 or 70% of what they normally would. So those are really the only fees.
Bill?
Yeah, I guess the lifetime. Can you explain the lifetime thing on the rate lock?
Yeah, so again, this transaction right now currently goes out to 2030. So right now, this is a fixed rate bond issue where the rates are fixed for the life of the transaction. So every year, the county pays down a little bit of principal. Just like our own mortgages, you pay a little bit of principal on your mortgage each year. That's what the county's doing on this current bond issue as well for the 2012 Bs. So right now, the rates are locked in place. It's a traditional fixed rate transaction, and that's the way it would be for this new one as well. So the rates, once we do the pricing, so after October 17th, say you would approve the ordinance, say the week after that, we lock in the rates. They're set in stone. The administration is going to know, and you're going to know exactly what your payment's going to be through the life of that transaction. It's not going to change at all. There's certainty on those payments unless the county would take action to refinance it at some point in time to then change it. So the rate is locked in for the whole duration, the full duration of that bond issue.
Because option 5, 6, and 7, we could face option 5, 6, and 7, which would be 2 points, 3 points. You know, 5, 6, and 7 is not on here, right? But that would be what, 2% over what we have, 3% over what we have.
Well, if rates would be 2 or 3% over, yeah.
And then if we looked at the numbers on that,
there'd be no savings.
Yeah.
There'd be no savings.
but I mean, if we looked at the numbers on that and we went with option 1, there'd be a ton of savings, probably 3 times the amount of savings.
Well, no, that's if, so the options, the scenarios say.
Well, option 5 and 6 is not listed here.
Right,
It's
that's if rates
just
go up
me
2 or
saying that
3%, right.
if it was 2% over where we are today, or 3% when we get to the maturity date of the current one, you know.
Well, it's so the rates on the bonds that we're refunding, those rates aren't going up 100 or
No.
200 basis points or so. It's the rates on the new bonds. So yeah, if rates go up 2 or 3%, say in 2022,
Right.
Then there'd be no savings.
Right.
So that's the higher the rates go, then the less savings the county would be able to realize.
Kevin?
No, I like scenario 1. I like acting now. I mean, and, you know, I appreciate what Mr. Warner said. You know, we know what the savings is now. We could end up not saving anything, or, you know, the chances of it going down much more are slim. I I tend to like acting now with scenario one. We see what we got. And that being said, with that cap that you mentioned, what's our bottom line, 5%, 4%, I think that gives us, that's very important that we write that into a resolution, because that gives us our security. If it goes down much more than that, then you're looking at, well, we ride this thing out,
Right.
and,
That's right.
we might end up doing better in the long run. So I think that cap is very important in a resolution.
So rule of thumb that I think I mentioned earlier, so back in the older days, for a tax-exempt current refunding, a lot of municipalities, counties, governmental agencies took the approach of 2% savings. That's a current refunding. For an advanced refunding, a tax-exempt advanced refunding, a lot of governmental entities said, okay, well, let's do it at 3% or greater savings. Because this is a taxable advanced refunding, I'd probably want to see that percentage up a little bit more, whether it's 4% or you can go higher, whatever everyone's comfort level. But just to help you think about that a little bit, 2%'s been a traditional for current refunding, 3%'s been a traditional benchmark for tax-exempt advanced refunding. But because this is a taxable advanced refunding, I'd probably recommend maybe 4%, somewhere around there. But I'm just sort of throwing it out there for discussion purposes. But happy to entertain other ideas.
Further questions?
And you could actually fill that in the night of the meeting. Give you time. You don't have to tell me today. You get plenty of time to think about it.
Do I have a motion to move to set a resolution up for a process for doing the taxable refund? Or
So-
not necessary right now?
If you just make a motion tomorrow night, we can set us on
Okay.
first. And then
All right.
we'll introduce the resolution at the next meeting.
Fine.
For the October 3rd.
Yeah.
So, any movement to,
So moved.
thank you. Thank you, Scott.
All right. Thank you for your time this afternoon. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Keep your fingers crossed.
We
Keep
did
us
that last
posted.
time.
Yeah, that worked out pretty well last time.
We did that last time, okay. All right, next on the agenda, review of Gracedale employees referral incentive payments request, I believe. Is that, okay, that you? Okay. Everybody be patient, take a minute, like I will.
We have to take a minute.
Are we taking a siesta?
No.
Or Brian, where's Brian? Oh.
I know, I saw it in the car. I heard it.
But Brian's here, so I was all ready for him.
I was thinking today, I looked at it real quickly on my phone in the car when I was driving down 22.
Yeah. No, I remember that. It's not a problem. Are you okay?
Yeah. Apologies, go ahead.
No problem. Well, my name is Elizabeth Kelly, and I'm Director of Human Resources. I'm here to present this employee referral incentive payment, which is, pretty simple. In order to help us get the staff of Gracedale up to complement, we'd like to obtain your approval for our proposal to offer employees a referral incentive payment. How this would work is there would be a payment, one-time cash payment for each employee who refers an RN to work at Gracedale of $250. There are some conditions where the way we would work it is that the fee would not be paid to the employee until after the newly employed RN has completed probation, which is 720 hours at Gracedale. Yes. And we would track this in Human Resources. For any other Gracedale position, LPN, certified nurse assistant, laundry worker, whatever the case may be, a incentive payment of $100 would be paid under the same conditions. After the new employee completes their 720-hour probation period, the payment would be paid.
Question? I'm sorry, were you done?
Yes.
Okay. Where does the money come from?
I will have to defer Is Mr. Barron? Mr. Barron is not here. I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Barron, I was going to say there's probably money somewhere in the budget for this, but I don't know where. So,
I am sorry to tell you, Ms. Councilman Werner, as good a question as that is, I do not know the answer to
I'm
it.
just asking, that's all. I'm sure that we can do it, I just thought I'd ask where. Go ahead, Lori.
What made you decide on the timing of the payment? Probation versus like
I
6
think
months of employment?
it was really a group of, if I'm not mistaken, a group of people over at Gracedale in the administration who developed this proposal and thought that, you know, most agencies who refer employees charge a fee, which they agree to give back if the employee does not stay for a certain length of time. So I think they sort of borrowed from that concept and said, well, we would pay money for this, but, you know, we wouldn't pay it until after this person has passed their probationary period. I guess their feeling was it would be a more solid referral. I guess their feeling was they didn't want people just referring employees who would stay a couple days and then leave. That's not probably going to happen in a case like an RN position, but it's. Oh, I'm sorry. What?
Steve's here.
I'm sorry, but to finish my answer to your question is, I don't think that's a real risk for RNs, you know, or even LPNs, but there are some positions where there's not a lot of skill required, and maybe the feeling was maybe we would have people who would be referring their siblings. I don't know.
Like they'd abuse the policy in some way. That's what you're saying?
Yeah, I think their feeling was if it would dial down anyone's ambition to perhaps abuse the policy if we made it clear that, you know, we're looking for serious referrals only, someone who's likely to succeed.
Mr. Lott?
Just most places.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you have to have a timeline. You can't just. Thank you. You have to have a timeline. I mean, and probation probably is a good timeline, or 6 months. The whole idea is we're trying to create full-time employees, which we have been struggling with. And I know you guys have been doing a lot with recruiting, and I think this is a great idea.
Yes.
Recruiting through friends and family, and talking to a worker, and that worker telling you, come work with us, it's a good place. That, I don't think you can beat that for recruiting.
It's probably
I mean,
the best endorsement we could get.
Yeah, so that being said, are these good numbers to get that work done? I mean, it costs people. I know temp services, we pay a lot when we get a temporary person.
Do you?
Not the county, but when I did it
Yeah.
before. I mean, is 100 and 250 enough to get their attention? I don't know. I mean, is that going to get your current employees' attention? Hey, I mean, I think even if it isn't enough financially to get their attention, I think the combination with, hey, they're asking me to go out and try to help. So you got buy-in from the employees. They're coming to me and ask them help with this. So now I can get people I think that are good. That can backfire sometimes on us as employers, but you get them buying in more. Back to my original question, is 250 enough? If we get a full-time nurse that stays with Gracedale, $250 is
You're right.
is chump change.
She's probably worth more.
You know, and I know what the hospitals do. She's not getting it, but we're trying to get our employees to recruit for us. And I know some of the initiatives out there in the private sector for recruiting are quite high if you can get the person to stay. So that's my only thought. Is this a good enough number to get their attention? It may very well be, because I believe there's other things that factor into. You put this out there, you put it on the radar, and then they feel confident that they can help out their workplace. So
I think we were trying to be fiscally prudent and financially prudent in the numbers we selected. If you want to put a higher number on it, we'll be happy to take it.
Time out on that.
Well,
Okay, Ms. Zirinsky, go ahead.
I'm doing a timeout.
But I think part of what occurs to me as I'm sitting here listening to you make sense. What occurs to me is that the more we put on it, though, the chance that we increase the likelihood of getting prospects that don't stick.
Yeah. Okay, sorry.
because you can share the money.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Valid.
What if at 60 days you get the $200-some or whatever it is, and then at 1 year you get another bonus because that person stayed? Then that would create the longevity that you want and reward the person for getting somebody who stuck around.
Can't disagree with that logic.
Yeah, that seems like smart.
Well, this is in motion. This isn't in motion yet. This is still being worked on, right? It's still.
Well, no, it's a solid proposal.
It is a solid proposal.
Yeah.
The reason I brought it up is I know of another place that does this. Where my daughter works, they do this. So
Oh.
she stayed 6 months, and her friend got $100. So now they're all scrambling to get friends to work there so they can get their $100. And they honestly forget about it until 6 months, and they go, "Oh wow," because so and so stayed. So I would just suggest that it be 6 months across the board rather than a differential, and the money is the money, because.
Anyone else?
Because you already know if you refer somebody, I could get some money if they stay. I'm going to refer a quality person.
Yes.
720 hours.
Right.
Which is 6 months, right?
Yes.
For a full-time employee. But if they work less than full-time, it could take longer than that. That's all.
Well, I have to applaud your entrepreneurship on this. I'm just curious, are we taking it out of the recruiting and I just want to know if we're taking it out of the marketing and recruiting funding, because we do have a recruiter, don't we?
Mr. Barron is here, and he
Okay.
is dying to answer this
Dark
question.
money
I
man.
can tell.
Thank you.
We have a vacancy factor at Gracedale, plus
Yes.
there's a fund balance.
Yes, I know.
So, and our dependency on agency nursing is way up. So, with Gracedale's fund balance as it is now, we can sustain this for 2019, and it's considered in the 2020 budget. We fill that vacancy factor, and then hopefully our dependency goes down on agency nurses, and therefore we'll have enough money to sustain this program.
That answer the questions?
Just look
John?
at it.
Just comment. I think it's a good idea, but I think the problem I have is that it's $250 for the RN positions and then $100 for any other. And I would think that the issues that we have are also need to be addressed towards the LPNs and the CNAs, not so much laundry, food service, housekeeping. That hasn't been a chronic issue as far as I've seen.
We're in good shape with our CNAs right now. Very good. LPN's getting better. We can't hire RNs. We may be we're investigating some, I think, some pretty innovative or aggressive initiatives to bring to you in the near future to get RNs in the door. And I'm not chasing stars at Gracedale. I'm really not. I don't want to say I don't care about them. I do. It's a perception issue in many cases. But hiring the RNs is really one of those things that's going to help us improve our star position on our CMS rating. Yeah, it's the RNs that we're having a hard time getting.
Okay, and then I guess my only other comment would be, well, why not extend that to all of the county employees? If they have somebody that they know that they could get to work there, I think that might be something to think about.
That's a wonderful suggestion. That could be an amendment that we might introduce.
We have to change this.
Well, does the budget support all counties?
Well, this is targeted SALT money right now. That's what this is. So we're looking to do something specific. I think if you want to discuss later, in my opinion, if you want to discuss later on how to do it with HR across the board, that could be done. But I think let's stay on focus.
Task. Do we need this motion to go forward?
Well,
we finished?
Yes, finished. That you've heard our proposal, and I think Mr. Cusick's idea is a great idea.
Okay, so then.
However, I do know that
Go ahead. I know what you're gonna
our
do.
feeling was that if this money is to come out of Gracedale's budget, I think that's why it was confined to Gracedale employees, although I would personally pay any other county employee $250 for referring an RN that would stay 720 hours. Oh, yes, I do. I really do.
On the record. Pardon?
Can we pull this from tomorrow's agenda so it could be
We-
referred?
Well, I think all
John's
you would.
gonna add an
Yeah, I
addendum
would
to-
just say, all you would really have to do, if you're interested in opening this up to any county employee, is just, if you look at the handout, I'm looking at, for policy, would just say the county will provide a $250 incentive payment to any employee, just delete of Gracedale. Okay, so we could just strike of Gracedale from that, who refers an applicant who is hired to an RN position at Gracedale. For employees who refer applicants who are hired for any other vacant position at Gracedale, the county will provide. So we could just, in the policy, strike of Gracedale, and for the eligibility, we could just strike any Gracedale employee and just say any employee, or any Northampton County employee.
We're going to have to amend the policy because we're just approving it as an attachment. So we're not doing the policy, we're just approving the policy. So the policy would have to be changed through the executive.
Well, yeah, we could certainly draft any policy you would approve. Just so you know, this policy attached here is a Gracedale-specific policy that goes into their policy book. Our own county policies have a slightly different format, and they all carry the county seal. But it would not be difficult to draft such a policy.
Okay.
So I need you to clarify what you're suggesting.
correct.
Because I'm not clear.
Okay, so the suggestion is, rather than just open this incentive to Gracedale employees, that any county employee who refers an RN or LPN, CNA,
To
would be
Gracedale.
eligible, to Gracedale, would be eligible for the
Right,
incentive.
I hear you. I think that you would just have to do that in a separate document. No?
No,
Isn't that what
no.
Liz just said?
Liz can do that. You-
Because didn't she just say that
You
that
can
was
do
a
this.
I think
specific
once-
policy of Gracedale?
I
To
think
any
once
employee.
council expresses its will, we can then go ahead and formulate the policy that would
Wherever
be
you want.
consistent with that.
To any employee of the county who refers an applicant who is hired, blah, blah, blah. For county employees who refer applicants who are hired for any other vacant, the county will provide.
Yes.
Period.
Yes. Can we,
I see no reason.
And then
Can you
under
redo that?
eligibility,
can you redo that way?
Use this language, amended as
Yes.
Mr. Cusick and Ms. Margot Hefner are saying right now, and put it into the
Right.
format customarily used.
Right, because the
Fine.
policy is an administrative
Give
function.
it a number.
Once we
okay,
have
so I
direction
misunderstood
from
that.
cancel, we can go ahead and do it.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I
what I
mean,
meant.
if-
I'm sorry. if I
Oh, I thought you said something about this policy
Right.
with a seal on it, and this could only go here,
No.
and so it made it seem like that was specific to Gracedale.
They have a
and
separate-
that-
this one is.
They have a separate policy manual,
But-
and you were just talking about the seal as a
As
distinction
long as
between.
Gracedale's
our-
not paying for
If an
it.
Could we-
employee in the sheriff's office makes a recommendation for, to
Right,
hire a
I'm not
nurse at
opposed to
Gracedale,
it.
why shouldn't they get, I
Yes,
think that's a
no,
good
I
incentive.
totally agree, not opposed to it, I was just discussing the
We just
mechanism by
didn't think
which
of it.
it would come about.
It's a great idea.
It has been thought
So,
of and
could we-
discussed. Yeah. Go
could we
ahead.
just suggest that when we write it, she reviews it before it gets
Yes.
presented tomorrow, so that it's
Can you,
I's are dotted and its T's are crossed according to
Well,
HR
Well, what we're
policy?
looking for is guidance as to the money and who gets the money, and how long you have to stay to get the money. That's what we're looking for.
Okay.
And
The
then we
money
can
is the
craft
money,
policy
6 months is the
thus.
time limit across the board, and it's any point, and then it stays, because it also says the referring employee must also remain employed, all that stuff
Yes.
is still germane. So you're just changing who is eligible for the referral fee, correct?
correct.
And then from that, Liz will amend the policy to reflect what council has done.
It's not a hard thing.
No, it's
We can
not.
have that tomorrow night.
Okay.
Right,
Yes.
that's
We
not,
can-
yeah. it's not
So,
All right, and then number 3 would have to be changed as well. The referring employee must be employed at the county at the time of the newly hired. So there's lots of places where you have to make changes here.
Yeah,
But
but
she
it's,
could do that.
it's just wording, really, I mean.
semantics.
So motion to approve as suggested amendments?
Yeah, I'll
Or-
second
and to
that.
Put forward?
Go ahead.
Thank you very much.
Right, well, she said she would.
That went better than you thought. Okay, well, thank you. Okay, let's review Article 13 contracts. You're gonna have to forgive me, guys, I have a cold for my grandsons, so I'm not feeling real good right now. And I'll blame that on them, I will. Absolutely. I'll put the grandkids under the bus any day, they just do this stuff to me. All right,
what do I have to do?
Review, let's see, Floyd G. Hirsch Incorporated, let's see, it's Norbath Trail Project, Phase 1, recommendation from Brian Cope, Parks and Recreation. The term is 1 year, the price is $249,366.25. Any questions? It's pretty much spelled out. Brian has made numerous discussions on this, so.
Motion to move forward to tomorrow
Thank
night.
you very much. Okay, next is the Slate Belt Plumbing, Heating, Electric. It is a recommendation from Landon Parker, Bridge Superintendent, to award contract for electric and heating. Estimated $80,000 per year with total payment $240,000 for 3 years. Highway interchange, lighting, maintenance, and repairs. Any questions? I know what you're going to say.
This is a
already.
great
This is
story.
this-
Mr. Derringer, would you like to tell us
I'm
how
assuming
we
it's about a lamp,
came
some
to
kind of light
inherit
that's
this?
on a highway somewhere or something? No? You don't want to refer? Okay. No further discussion from the administration?
There is a long.
Go ahead, John. You're going to talk.
I'm not going to. There's a long story behind how the county came to be in charge of the highway interchange lights, and we have done everything we can to get out of it. But you know what happens once you start a program? Try ending it. But
The county owns a lamp post over Route 33, okay? It's nice. Or is it
Is that what this is for?
Yes.
Why is
Interchange.
this not like a PennDOT thing?
That's a long story. Mr. Derringer, if you pull Mr. Derringer aside, he'll take care of that.
this is a
discussion.
very long
It's a long
story.
So given
Talk
that,
to-
I'd like
So
to
you can't
move
throw
this
that
forward
potato
for
No,
tomorrow
talk to
night.
Mr. Derringer about it. He's got
Yeah,
it.
we're stuck with it.
Motion to move.
I made it.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Okay. All right.
I want to get to
CMR Construction, which is a recommendation from Mr. Amelie, Director of Public Works, for the award the contract for $126,000 for Fry's Run for 1 year on construction. Questions?
No,
This is for the park.
It's for the
right?
park,
for
yes.
the park.
Motion to move.
Got it.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Let's see, Atlantic Culinary, I like this, Atlantic Culinary Environments. I thought we were getting a new refrigerator or something. This is for a recommendation from Fiscal Affairs from Atlantic Culinary Environments for $147,870 for stainless steel mobile carts. I believe they're for Gracedale, correct?
Right, only the price.
Motion to move
Questions?
forward.
Second.
Second motion, thank you. Okay. Okay, that was fine. Mr. Zaborski, I actually didn't interfere with your program. I always ask for Steve all the time. I apologize.
Look at this, we got color.
Yeah, he added color to it. Okay.
There's like 4 of these.
I have 4 items to discuss this evening or to review. Get this stuff out of the way. The first one was an audit of the Register of Wills and Orphans Court agency funds as of March 31st, 2018. Overall, the financial transactions and processes are functioning well. This is in part due to the 4J computer system being replaced with a new County Fusion system December of 2015. County Fusion is an information management and software solution system for local governments. This audit is one of a series of periodic audits of all agency funds performed for the purpose of supplementing the year-end work prescribed by the county's external auditor. The focus of this audit was on the receipt and disbursement functions and on compliance with laws and regulations of the Register of Wills and Register of Wills and Orphans Court. Scope of our audit period was July 31st, 2017 through March 31st, 2018. Recommendations were made for some internal control weaknesses identified in the early stages of this audit, and corrective action was taken to resolve the issues identified. Our first observation was that the Register of Wills and Orphans Court offices do not have an updated policy and procedures manual. The manual currently on their shared drive was not updated to reflect the changes brought about by the County Fusion computer system when it was installed in 2015. We recommend reviewing the existing manual and updating it to reflect the new computer system, as well as any changes that have occurred in the office since it was last updated. The completed manual should be reviewed with the staff and made available to them for use in their daily duties. The manager's response was, per the auditor's request, the Financial Policy and Procedures Manual has been updated to reflect the processes under the new county system, tracking of state commissions payments, process for handling non-sufficient funds, and the process for escheating escrow money. The updated copy was provided to each staff member and was placed on the shared drive for staff to access as needed. Our second observation was that during our audit, we observed that escrow money received from 2007 to 2011 for caveat deposits totaling $3,617 was still being held even though the cases were closed and all expenses were paid. These cases date back to the prior Register of Wills. The Register of Wills tried numerous times to contact lawyers for the estates, but in some cases there were multiple lawyers involved over the years, and the Register of Wills could not determine exactly who made these deposits and to whom these deposits should be returned. The Comptroller's solicitor recommended that escrow funds for caveat deposits, which have been held for more than 3 years and which will have no further expenditures, should be deposited in accordance with the Disposition of Abandoned and Unclaimed Property Act. Notice must be given to the owners of the escrow deposits not more than 120 days nor less than 60 days prior to the date in which the corresponding report is being submitted to the state treasurer. In the future, if money isn't claimed, the Register of Wills should follow the reporting requirements set forth in the DAUPA. In addition, even though a status report has not been filed on the estate, you can still escheat the caveat deposit provided there are no outstanding fees. Estates that are still in litigation, caveat deposit must remain on the account until the estate is resolved. Management's response was that there is a total of $3,617 currently held in the escrow account, out of which $1,117 will be refunded directly to the estates or the payer if known. The remainder, $2,500, cannot be escheated or refunded because the cases are still litigated, are still being litigated, active, or pending a court order for their release. Throughout the audit process, from the preliminary gathering of information to the testing phase, it was evident that the Register of Wills, her deputies, and the accountant were very committed to making the fiscal operations run effectively and efficiently, prompting corrective actions that were found before the audit was completed. That concludes my report on the first one.
Thank you, Mr. Zavorsky. Any questions on that? Except for the money that's in limbo that we don't know where it's going to go. I guess it's still there. Thank you. It has a funny name. It's in limbo.
Okay, yeah, right.
Thank you. Okay, next is the civil sheriff's.
Yes, we have completed an audit of the civil and sheriff agency funds as of December 31st, 2018. Our audit revealed that the receipt and disbursement process are functioning as intended. All receipts are taken to the Revenue Division and deposited in the proper bank accounts via Dunbar Services on a timely basis. Bank statements are being reconciled properly. All sheriff funds on hand had a valid reason for the cases to remain open with the funds undistributed. For the most part, the internal controls are adequate, but procedures regarding coin collection from the copy machine used by the public need improvement. Also, undisturbed sheriff cases should be reviewed by the solicitors and disbursement to proper parties or escheated to the state in a timely manner. There should be a written policy on procedures regarding the disposition of older cases. Regarding the coin collection, our recommendation was that management should develop a spreadsheet and document procedures to be used when replenishing the change bag each day, recording all necessary information on the spreadsheet. Also, miscellaneous coins in the copy machine should be removed and deposited at least annually. Documented procedures for these functions should be incorporated into the office policies and procedures manual. Management's response was that the coin change is replenished and verified almost daily by both the prothonotary and the lead deputy. However, the verification is not documented on paper. A spreadsheet will be created with the information that is acceptable to the controller. Once the spreadsheet is created, this step will be incorporated into the office's policies and procedures. Miscellaneous coins in the public copy machine have not been removed and deposited annually. This will be done as recommended and incorporated into the office's policy and procedure until the coin operation is permanently removed from the office. We also found that the Civil Division had 6 cases that were older than 2 years and remain open in the Sheriff's advanced checking account with undistributed funds. Our recommendation was that the Prothonotary should consult with the Division Solicitor and the Director of Court Services to create a written policy regarding the disposition of older Sheriff advanced funds. The policy should take into consideration the Disposition of Abandoned and Unclaimed Property Act. Written policy should be incorporated in their office policies and procedures manual. The management response was that the Prothonotary has notified the solicitor of all the recommendations of the controller, and a copy of this response will be forwarded to the solicitor. A meeting will be scheduled between the Director of Court Services, the Prothonotary, the Deputy Real Estate Clerk, and solicitor, and a legal determination will be made how to dispose of these 3 dormant cases. That concludes that report.
Thank you, Mr. Zabor. So that means that we have 17,000 in limbo with the Will and Orphans Agency and 34,000 plus Civil Sheriff Agency fund in limbo, correct?
I believe that's the right amount.
So we have over $51,000. See, question?
Why are we still using a copy machine that requires quarters?
We didn't jack the price up yet. No, it's an old, I don't know.
Copier.
It's a
I
old
mean,
copy machine.
who comes in with a bag of quarters to like get their stuff copied?
I don't know, that's why they have change bags.
I know,
I know.
that seems like archaic. Is there anything we could do about changing that, or should we?
Mr. Barron?
Mr. Barron probably put it in.
No, he didn't.
Whoa.
One of the quarters.
Oh.
The quarters.
You didn't know I knew vending
It's
machine
like a
people.
Coinstar thing, yeah.
It's actually better than taking the money over the counter in these offices that do not accept cash. Some of them only accept checks for the services. In the Recorder of Deeds office right now, they have a card system that they use. That's an older card system. It's the fee that County Council put in place for copies, to generate copies. But it is a better way to do it.
But you have to put quarters in the copier?
Yep.
Oh my God, that seems painful.
Yeah, and we have Dunbar, and we count the quarters and do all the revenue department.
Like,
Well,
Yeah, they don't get it.
it's a little bit more efficient than that.
She doesn't carry quarters. Okay.
counting quarters.
Does that answer your question, Ms.
Oh,
Zaborski?
it does.
Thank you, Mr. Zaborski.
Thanks.
Okay, Conservation District, please.
Okay, the next one. We have audited the statement of revenue and expenditures of the Conservation District for the year ending December 31st, 2018, and the related notes to the financial statement. Our responsibility is to express an opinion of the financial statement based on our audit. In our opinion, the financial statement presents fairly, in all material respects, the statement of revenue and expenditures of the district for the year ending December 31st, 2018, in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States. The financial system was prepared for the purpose of complying with Commonwealth of Pennsylvania State Conservation Commission reporting requirements. In planning and performing our audit, we considered the district's internal controls over financial reporting. During our audit, we did not identify any deficiencies in internal controls that we would consider to be material weaknesses. As part of obtaining reasonable assurance about whether the district's financial statements are free of material misstatement, we performed tests of its compliance. The results of our tests disclose no instances of non-compliance or other matters that would require to be reported under general government accounting standards. That concludes that report.
Thank you. Questions? Okay, moving right along, internal control review.
The last one was the audit agreed upon procedures engagement of the county's after-hour bail cash collection process as of July 2019. The first procedure was to review cash collection work assignments to determine if a proper segregation of duties is in place, and we found that segregation of duties is adequate, ensuring proper internal controls over the collection of cash. The second procedure was to select a sample of 5 receipts and verify they are deposited on the same day as received, and that the cash check mix agrees to be validated to the validated deposit slip. Our finding was that bail collection in the jail often kept in a safe overnight and then taken to the criminal division the next business day. There it is counted, entered into the CPCMS system, and then deposited into the bail bank account. We tested 5 receipts and found that in 2 instances, the deposits were made the same day the bill was received. And in 2 other instances, there was a delay of 1 business day. 1 receipt was not deposited for 3 days, but this was found to have been caused by a problem with the paperwork accompanying the bail. The criminal division had to send the receipt back to the jail for correction. The cash check mix of the deposits is tested when we perform our audit on the criminal division agency fund, and the next one is scheduled for 2020, and was therefore not reviewed here. The third procedure is for offices with bank accounts. The jail does not have a bank account for bail collections. They're taken to the criminal division and deposited in their bank account. Again, this account is tested when we perform our audit of the criminal division agency fund, which is therefore not reviewed here, which is scheduled for next year. That concludes the last report.
Questions or comments from the count? No. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you
Zaborski,
very
as
much.
always.
Thank you.
How many days?
104 days
Thank
to
you.
go.
Well, who's counting? You're very good. Motion to adjourn?
Hope you feel better.
Sleep.